When the homeowner first moved into the quiet suburban neighborhood, everything felt perfect. The streets were lined with neat trees, lawns were well kept, and houses had a uniform charm that made the whole area feel peaceful and organized. It was the kind of place where neighbors waved when passing by, kids played safely in yards, and the evenings were calm and still. After years of living in cramped apartments and noisy streets, the homeowner thought they had finally found a place to settle, a place to call home. The first few weeks were pleasant. The homeowner spent time arranging furniture, planting flowers, and making the house feel warm and lived in. Neighbors stopped by to introduce themselves, offering small gifts like cookies or a friendly wave. Everything seemed normal and the homeowner was happy. The community had rules, of course, but they seemed fair enough. The homeowner understood that keeping the neighborhood neat and orderly was part of what made it attractive. Then one morning, a letter arrived from the homeowners association. The homeowner opened it with curiosity, expecting a routine notice or a friendly reminder about dues. Instead, the words on the paper were sharp and commanding. The letter claimed that the homeowner had violated landscaping rules and demanded immediate action. The tone was aggressive, almost threatening, warning of fines and possible legal action if the issue was not corrected immediately. The homeowner felt a sudden chill. It seemed excessive for a few plants in the yard. Trying to remain calm, the homeowner carefully read through the letter again. They checked the landscaping against the rules and found nothing clearly wrong. There were flowers outside the prescribed area, yes, but nothing dangerous, nothing ugly or disruptive. The homeowner decided to respond politely, hoping that the misunderstanding could be cleared up quickly. An email was sent explaining the situation and asking for clarification. Days passed, but the reply from the HOA was just as stern, repeating the demands and even increasing the threat of fines. The homeowner felt a mixture of confusion and frustration. How could a simple mistake, barely noticeable, lead to such hostility? Over the next week, more letters arrived. Each one seemed more severe than the last. Notices were posted on the front door, letters arrived in the mailbox, and even phone calls came, all pressing the homeowner to comply immediately. The homeowner started to feel like they were under constant surveillance. Every step outside the house was shadowed by the fear of another letter, another fine, another confrontation. It wasn't just the letters that worried the homeowner. Members of the HOA appeared at the property unexpectedly, inspecting the yard and taking photos. They asked pointed questions and made comments that felt condescending, implying the homeowner was careless or irresponsible. The homeowner greeted them politely, answered their questions, and tried to show cooperation, but the atmosphere remained tense. The homeowner couldn't understand why a group of people, supposedly elected to keep the neighborhood safe and pleasant, were acting like enforcers in a constant campaign of intimidation. At night, the homeowner would sit in the living room, looking out at the perfectly quiet street, trying to process everything. The sense of peace they had felt when moving in was gone. The constant pressure from the HOA began to weigh on their mind, creating anxiety and stress. Friends noticed the homeowner becoming quieter, less relaxed, and more tense. Some tried to offer advice, suggesting ways to comply or appease the HOA, but nothing seemed to make a difference. Each letter, each visit, reinforced the idea that the homeowner was under siege. Despite the growing frustration, the homeowner refused to react with anger. They knew that responding emotionally could escalate the situation, making it worse. Instead, they focused on understanding the rules more clearly and finding ways to defend themselves calmly and professionally. Every interaction with the HOA became an opportunity to learn about the bylaws, the fines, and the procedures that governed the neighborhood. The homeowner began keeping careful records of every letter, every email, and every conversation. Each photo, each note, each timestamp was saved meticulously. It became a habit, almost a ritual, to track the HOA's every move. Meanwhile, the neighbors noticed the homeowner's calm resilience. Some whispered about the situation, sharing their own experiences with the HOA, noting how aggressive the association could be. Others seemed relieved that someone was standing up to the constant pressure. The homeowner didn't seek attention, but there was a quiet respect that grew among those who had suffered similar threats. The homeowner's situation became a subtle reminder to everyone that even in a strict neighborhood, fairness and dignity mattered. The homeowner also sought advice from legal sources, researching HOA regulations online and reading about homeowners who had successfully defended themselves. It became clear that the association often overstepped its bounds, sometimes acting aggressively without full authority. This knowledge gave the homeowner a small sense of relief. There was a path forward, a way to protect themselves without conflict if they were careful, prepared, and strategic. The homeowner began to feel a quiet determination growing inside, a sense that this challenge could be faced and overcome. The tension escalated when a particularly harsh letter arrived, claiming new violations that the homeowner had not seen before. It suggested fines that would accumulate daily, creating a sense of urgency and threat. The homeowner felt a surge of frustration, knowing that these accusations were unfounded. Still, they remained calm, drafting a clear, professional response that outlined every fact, referenced every rule, and challenged the inaccuracies in the letter. They sent it carefully, knowing that patience and precision were their strongest tools. Days later, the homeowner attended a board meeting, wanting to address the situation in person. The room was filled with HOA members, all seated in formal positions of authority. The homeowner stood quietly at first, listening to the board's complaints and observing their demeanor. Then calmly and clearly, they explained their perspective. Every point was supported by documentation, every counter-argument backed by rules and evidence. The homeowner did not shout or argue. Instead, they spoke with a calm confidence that slowly captured the room's attention. Some board members seemed taken aback, as if they had not expected the homeowner to be so prepared and composed. As the meeting ended, the homeowner left with a mixture of relief and anticipation. They had presented their case clearly, professionally, and without emotion, but they knew the real test was still ahead. The HOA's response could still bring new challenges, but for the first time, the homeowner felt a shift. They realized that they were not powerless, that preparation and patience could turn even the most aggressive threats into manageable situations. Back at home, the homeowner reflected on the past few weeks. What had started as a peaceful move into a quiet neighborhood had turned into a test of patience, knowledge, and composure. The anxiety and stress were still there, but they had been tempered by a growing confidence. The homeowner began to understand that facing threats calmly, understanding the rules, and documenting everything could transform fear into strength. The letters and visits from the HOA no longer felt like overwhelming attacks. They were challenges to be met with strategy, not panic. The story of those first weeks was one of quiet struggle and personal growth. The homeowner had learned to navigate a world of rules, threats, and bureaucracy without losing composure. They had discovered a deep inner strength, a methodical patience, and a calm confidence that would serve them well in the days to come. The neighborhood, once a place of pure peace, had become a proving ground, and the homeowner had begun to prove to themselves and quietly to others that they were capable, resilient, and ready to face the challenge head-on. After the first tense weeks of receiving aggressive letters and visits from the HOA, the homeowner knew they could not simply wait for the situation to resolve itself. The initial fear and confusion had shifted into determination. They understood that to protect their home and peace of mind, they needed to learn every detail about the HOA's rules and operations. They began spending evenings reading the association's bylaws, searching online for guidance, and taking notes on every clause that might affect them. The more they read, the more they realized that some of the board's threats were questionable, if not outright incorrect. This knowledge gave the homeowner a sense of quiet empowerment. The homeowner also began keeping a detailed record of every interaction. Emails were archived, letters were scanned and saved, and even phone calls were logged with summaries of what was said. Photos of the property were taken regularly, capturing everything from the placement of plants to minor features of the lawn. The homeowner developed a system for tracking all correspondence with the HOA, creating a clear timeline of events. This was not just for self-protection. It was a way to maintain control over a situation that had felt chaotic and overwhelming. Neighbors noticed the homeowner's attention to detail. Some were curious, asking questions about the letters and fines. Others were sympathetic, sharing their own experiences of dealing with the HOA. Over time, the homeowner realized they were not alone. Many residents had quietly faced the same intimidation tactics, but lacked the organization or knowledge to respond effectively. This realization strengthened the homeowner's resolve. They were no longer just defending themselves. They were setting an example, showing that calm, methodical action could stand up to the board's threats. The homeowner also reached out to legal sources, seeking advice on how to handle the situation. While they were not immediately ready to hire a lawyer, they wanted to understand their rights and responsibilities. Articles, forums, and guides offered insight into how HOAs often acted beyond their authority, and how homeowners could protect themselves legally. They learned that documentation and knowledge were crucial, and that the board's power was not absolute. Each piece of information reinforced the homeowner's confidence, turning fear into strategy. During this time, the board continued to escalate its pressure. Letters became more frequent, threatening fines that seemed disproportionate to any alleged violations. One notice demanded immediate removal of flowers that had been in place for weeks, citing obscure rules that seemed inconsistently enforced. The homeowner read the letter carefully, comparing it with the bylaws. They discovered inconsistencies which they noted meticulously. Rather than reacting impulsively, they composed a calm response, addressing each point with facts and references. The letter was sent and a copy was kept for the growing file. Despite these careful actions, the homeowner could not ignore the stress of living under constant scrutiny. Walking in the yard or stepping outside felt tense, as if they were being watched. The homeowner's thoughts often wandered to what would happen if the board refused to acknowledge the documented evidence or continued issuing threats. Yet even in moments of doubt, they reminded themselves of the importance of patience and composure. Reacting with anger or panic would only give the board the advantage. Instead, they focused on building a plan that combined knowledge, evidence, and calm authority. The homeowner also considered attending another board meeting. The first attempt had been intimidating, with members speaking over them and dismissing concerns. But the homeowner knew that direct face-to-face interaction could also be an opportunity to assert control if done correctly. They spent time preparing for this possibility, practicing clear explanations and organizing documents in a logical order. The homeowner imagined potential questions from the board and planned responses that were polite but firm. Each detail was accounted for, from the order of presentation to the tone of voice. It became clear that preparation could transform fear into influence. In the meantime, the homeowner made small improvements to the property. Every change was carefully documented, ensuring that nothing could be misinterpreted as a violation. They took photos before and after each adjustment, keeping a visual record of compliance. It was a tedious process, but it served two purposes. It demonstrated diligence to the board and reassured the homeowner that they were taking control of the situation. The act of documenting and organizing became almost therapeutic, giving structure to an otherwise stressful ordeal. The board's behavior began to reveal patterns. Notices were sent in predictable intervals. Certain members appeared during inspections more often, and repeated claims were made about obscure rules. The homeowner observed these patterns closely, using them to anticipate the board's next moves. They realized that the board relied on intimidation and fear, hoping homeowners would react impulsively. Recognizing this strategy allowed the homeowner to maintain calm and stay ahead, turning the board's tactics against them through careful planning. The homeowner also began to think long-term. They wanted to create a situation where compliance was clear, misunderstandings were minimized, and any further attempts at intimidation would be ineffective. To do this, they considered forming a quiet network of neighbors who shared similar experiences. While not openly confronting the board, sharing advice, information, and moral support created a subtle community of informed residents. This collective knowledge strengthened the homeowner's resolve, providing reassurance that they were not alone. As the weeks passed, small victories began to appear. A letter that had threatened an immediate fine was countered with documentation showing that the claimed violation did not exist. The board reluctantly acknowledged the error, issuing a polite but terse correction. The homeowner did not celebrate openly, knowing that the real challenge was maintaining consistency over time. Yet internally, each acknowledgement from the board was a step toward balance, proof that careful documentation and patient action could work. The homeowner also began to notice personal growth. What had started as anxiety and fear transformed into confidence and clarity. The situation demanded focus, patience, and meticulous planning, qualities that the homeowner had not fully appreciated in themselves before. Each response to the board required clear thinking, factual accuracy, and calm communication. Over time, these skills became habits, preparing the homeowner not only to handle the HOA but also other challenges in life. Neighbors started to respond to the homeowner differently. They observed the calmness and organization, quietly admiring the homeowner's approach. Some sought advice asking how to handle similar letters or inspections. The homeowner shared general guidance without naming specifics, teaching others the value of documentation, knowledge, and patience. This subtle influence helped build a quieter, more informed community. The homeowner realized that standing firm and acting strategically could inspire others without direct confrontation. One evening, the homeowner received another letter, this time demanding an urgent response to an alleged violation involving a decorative item in the yard. Instead of panic, the homeowner carefully checked the bylaws and their records. They quickly noted that the claim was inconsistent with previous communications and that the item in question complied with the rules. Calmly, they drafted a response citing the exact bylaw, referencing past correspondence and attaching photographs as proof. The letter was sent and a copy filed. This routine became a rhythm, a way to handle pressure without losing control. The homeowner also took care of their mental well-being. They knew that constant stress could cloud judgment, so they made time for walks, reading, and relaxation. During these moments, the homeowner reflected on the situation, visualizing the board's reactions and rehearsing calm responses. The act of stepping back and observing the problem from a distance helped maintain perspective. It became clear that composure and patience were as important as documentation and strategy. Over time, the homeowner's confidence grew. They began to see the board not as an all-powerful force, but as a group of people operating within rules and vulnerable to evidence and reasoned argument. This realization shifted the homeowner's approach from fear to measured action. Each letter, each visit, each interaction was an opportunity to assert knowledge and calm authority. The board's intimidation tactics began to lose effect, and the homeowner felt a quiet sense of control returning. By the end of this period, the homeowner had transformed the way they viewed the neighborhood and the HOA. What once seemed like a threatening and chaotic environment had become a challenge to be met with patience, preparation, and intelligence. The homeowner had learned the importance of documentation, research, and strategic communication. They had discovered inner strength and resilience, realizing that knowledge and calm action could neutralize even the most aggressive opposition. The experience had been stressful, yes, but it had also forged confidence, clarity, and a quiet authority that would guide the homeowner in the next phase of the struggle. The homeowner had reached a point where patience and preparation were no longer optional. Weeks of careful documentation, research, and calm responses had given them knowledge, but the next step required direct action. They understood that a formal confrontation with the HOA board was necessary to assert authority and make it clear that intimidation would no longer work. This was not about aggression or revenge, it was about establishing boundaries, clarity, and respect. The homeowner began by organizing every document collected so far. Letters, emails, photos, phone call logs, and even notes from conversations with neighbors and legal sources were meticulously arranged. Each piece of evidence was categorized by date and type, creating a clear timeline of events. The homeowner also summarized key points, ensuring that every claim or violation referenced by the board could be addressed with accuracy. The goal was not to overwhelm the board, but to present a calm, undeniable case that left no room for false claims or intimidation. In addition to organizing documents, the homeowner prepared mentally. They envisioned potential scenarios, questions, and objections from the board. Each one was rehearsed carefully, with responses that were factual, concise, and calm. The homeowner reminded themselves that composure was a powerful tool, and that anger or defensiveness could weaken their position. Over several evenings, they practiced presenting the information aloud, making sure every point was clear and easy to follow. This preparation created a sense of confidence and focus that had been absent in the early weeks of conflict. The day of the meeting arrived. The homeowner entered the boardroom, carrying folders of neatly organized documents. Board members were already seated, some looking confident, others slightly impatient. The homeowner remained calm, greeting each member politely. No one spoke for a few moments, the tension in the room palpable. The homeowner took a deep breath and began to speak, presenting the case systematically and with clarity. Each alleged violation was addressed, supported by photographs, references to the bylaws and previous correspondence. The homeowner's tone was calm, firm, and unyielding. The board members reacted differently. Some looked taken aback, as if they had not expected the homeowner to be so prepared. Others attempted to interject, questioning details or pointing out minor inconsistencies. The homeowner listened carefully, acknowledging their points where necessary but always returning to facts and evidence. They did not argue or raise their voice. Instead, they maintained control of the conversation through clarity and composure, demonstrating that they were not intimidated by the board's authority. Throughout the meeting, the homeowner emphasized fairness and respect. They made it clear that they were willing to comply with reasonable rules and expectations, but they would not accept threats, intimidation, or inconsistent enforcement. The homeowner cited specific bylaws that supported their position, carefully explaining how previous actions by the board had been inconsistent or improperly documented. The room was silent at times, the weight of the homeowner's preparation and calm authority filling the space. Board members whispered among themselves, realizing that the situation was not as simple as they had assumed. As the meeting continued, the homeowner addressed a particularly aggressive member of the board who had sent repeated threatening letters. Calmly and respectfully, they laid out the evidence showing errors and inconsistencies in those letters, highlighting dates, factual inaccuracies, and references to the rules. The tone was firm but polite, leaving no room for personal attacks or emotional responses. The board members' confidence wavered, their attempts at intimidation losing strength as the homeowner's evidence and calm presentation became undeniable. Other members of the board began to shift their posture as well. Some leaned back, studying the documents, while others exchanged glances. The homeowner remained focused, ensuring that every point was clearly explained and backed by proof. When questions were asked, the homeowner responded patiently, never rushing, never becoming defensive. The strategy was simple: show knowledge, provide evidence, remain calm, and let the facts speak for themselves. The homeowner knew that patience and clarity were more powerful than anger or confrontation. During a brief break, the homeowner noticed subtle changes in the board members' demeanor. The aggressive confidence that had characterized the early weeks was fading. There was a sense of uncertainty and hesitation, a recognition that the homeowner was not an ordinary resident who could be bullied or intimidated. This realization strengthened the homeowner's own sense of control. They continued to review their documents, preparing for the second half of the meeting with the same focus and calm. When the meeting resumed, the homeowner continued to address each alleged violation methodically. They explained how their landscaping choices complied with the rules, how past inspections had been inconsistent, and how letters had included inaccurate claims. Each point was backed with evidence, creating a clear, logical argument that left little room for dispute. Board members attempted to interrupt or redirect the conversation, but the homeowner politely guided the discussion back to the facts, maintaining authority without confrontation. As the discussion went on, the homeowner also addressed the broader issue of community respect and fairness. They spoke about how the HOA's aggressive tactics affected residents, creating stress, anxiety, and fear. The homeowner emphasized that the goal was not to oppose rules or authority, but to ensure that rules were applied consistently and reasonably. Their words were measured and respectful, but the message was clear. Intimidation and threats would no longer dictate the homeowner's actions. The homeowner's preparation extended to anticipating potential challenges beyond the meeting. They had already drafted letters summarizing the discussion, documenting points raised by the board, and noting any commitments or acknowledgments made. This foresight ensured that the homeowner would have a clear record of the meeting, regardless of how the board responded afterward. The act of preparing in advance reinforced the homeowner's confidence, allowing them to remain composed throughout the tense interaction. As the meeting neared its conclusion, the homeowner made a final calm statement. They reiterated their willingness to comply with reasonable and clearly defined rules, highlighted their efforts to document and follow regulations, and emphasized the importance of fair treatment for all residents. The homeowner's tone was steady, respectful, and authoritative. The room fell silent, the weight of the evidence and the homeowner's demeanor leaving a strong impression on the board. In the days following the meeting, the homeowner observed subtle changes in the HOA's behavior. Letters became less aggressive, visits were less frequent, and threats of fines were carefully scrutinized. The homeowner continued to maintain documentation, ensuring that any future interactions remained organized and factual. The quiet confidence and preparation displayed during the meeting had shifted the balance of power. The board could no longer rely on intimidation alone. Neighbors began to notice the change as well. Some expressed relief that the homeowner had confronted the board calmly and effectively. Others sought advice on how to handle their own encounters with the HOA, inspired by the homeowner's methodical and composed approach. Without seeking attention or recognition, the homeowner had become a subtle example of how knowledge, preparation, and calm authority could influence even a seemingly powerful organization. The homeowner also reflected on personal growth. Facing the aggressive tactics of the HOA had demanded patience, research, organization, and clear communication. Each step taken had strengthened skills that extended beyond the immediate conflict. The homeowner realized that they had learned the value of preparation, the power of evidence, and the importance of composure in difficult situations. The experience had transformed fear into strategy and anxiety into confidence. While the HOA had not fully admitted fault, the homeowner could sense a shift in the organization's approach. The aggressive, threatening letters that had defined the early weeks were no longer the norm. The board members treated communications with more caution and professionalism, aware that the homeowner was knowledgeable, organized, and prepared. This subtle change in behavior confirmed that the homeowner's strategy of patience, documentation, and calm authority was effective. The homeowner continued to live their life with a sense of quiet control. Daily routines, yard maintenance, and interactions with neighbors continued as normal. But the knowledge that they could handle the HOA with confidence provided a deep sense of security. The homeowner had learned that challenges could be met not through anger or confrontation, but through preparation, evidence, and composure. Each interaction with the board became an opportunity to reinforce authority without escalation. As the weeks turned into months, the homeowner maintained vigilance while remaining calm. They continued documenting interactions, attending occasional board meetings when necessary, and addressing concerns with clarity and evidence. The sense of fear that had initially accompanied the HOA's threats had been replaced with a steady confidence, grounded in knowledge and preparation. The homeowner had discovered that even a seemingly overwhelming challenge could be navigated successfully with patience, strategy, and calm authority. Through this process, the homeowner not only protected their property and peace of mind, but also demonstrated to neighbors and the board that reason, preparation, and composure could triumph over intimidation. The experience became a quiet lesson in resilience, strategy, and the power of calm authority. The homeowner had turned what had started as a stressful and intimidating situation into an opportunity to assert control, establish respect, and maintain fairness within the community. They had proven that knowledge, evidence, and patience were more powerful than threats and aggression. Setting the stage for continued confidence, the homeowner had spent weeks preparing, documenting, and learning everything about the HOA and its rules. After the previous meeting, the homeowner had noticed small shifts in the board's behavior, but this time it was clear that a turning point was approaching. The homeowner understood that the next interaction would be decisive. It was no longer about defending against threats. It was about establishing real authority and making it clear that the board could no longer bully or intimidate. Early one morning, the homeowner received another letter from the HOA. The tone was the same as before, aggressive and demanding, but the homeowner had become skilled at responding without fear. They calmly read the letter, cross-referencing it with their carefully organized files. Every point in the letter could be addressed with evidence, and the homeowner knew exactly how to respond. Instead of reacting immediately, they planned a meeting with the board to present their case in person. This was the opportunity to assert authority and create lasting clarity. The homeowner arrived at the HOA office carrying neatly organized documents, photographs, and printed references from the bylaws. They were calm, composed, and focused. Board members, expecting another tense confrontation with a fearful resident, were surprised to see someone who was not intimidated. The homeowner greeted each member politely, exuding quiet confidence. For a few moments, the room was silent, the tension palpable as everyone adjusted to the unexpected shift in power. The homeowner began by addressing each alleged violation, They spoke slowly and clearly, referencing evidence, photographs, and bylaws. Each point the board raised was met with a factual response, leaving little room for debate. The homeowner's tone was firm yet respectful, making it clear that they were not challenging the board personally, but were asserting their right to fair treatment. Board members attempted to interrupt, but the homeowner maintained control, politely guiding the conversation back to the facts. This calm authority created an immediate impact. The board members realized they were no longer facing someone who could be easily intimidated. One board member, who had been particularly aggressive in past letters, attempted to challenge the homeowner directly. They spoke quickly, pointing to minor technicalities and obscure rules, hoping to provoke a defensive response. The homeowner listened carefully, acknowledging the points where appropriate, but countered each claim with clear evidence and logical explanations. The presentation was methodical, unhurried, and precise. Each piece of documentation reinforced the homeowner's position, leaving the aggressive member with little room to continue their intimidation. As the meeting progressed, the board members began to murmur among themselves, realizing that their authority was being questioned in a legitimate and undeniable way. The homeowner did not seek to shame or embarrass them, but the facts spoke for themselves. Every letter, every visit, every threatened fine had been carefully documented and addressed. The homeowner remained calm and steady, demonstrating control without raising their voice. It became evident that the homeowner was fully prepared to stand their ground, and the board could not continue its previous tactics. The homeowner also emphasized the broader issue of fairness and community respect. They spoke about how the board's aggressive tactics had affected residents, creating unnecessary stress and fear. The homeowner framed their argument around the principle that rules should be applied consistently and reasonably, not used as a tool for intimidation. This approach shifted the conversation from personal conflict to community values, creating a stronger moral position for the homeowner. The board could no longer rely solely on their authority. They had to contend with reason, evidence, and community expectations. Throughout the meeting, the homeowner maintained meticulous composure. They anticipated potential objections and had prepared calm, factual responses for each one. Board members attempted to deflect and challenge, but the homeowner's preparation was thorough. Every point was addressed with evidence. Every claim countered logically. By the end of the discussion, the board members were visibly uncomfortable, aware that their usual tactics would no longer succeed. The homeowner's calm, methodical presentation had shifted the balance of power. After several hours of discussion, the homeowner concluded the meeting. They reiterated their willingness to comply with reasonable rules, highlighted their meticulous documentation and adherence to bylaws, and emphasized the importance of fair treatment for all residents. The tone was firm but respectful, leaving no room for misinterpretation. The homeowner did not seek victory in confrontation, but instead focused on establishing clarity, authority, and a standard for future interactions. In the days following the meeting, the homeowner noticed immediate changes. Letters from the HOA were more measured, inspections were less frequent, and the tone of communication had shifted from aggressive to cautious. The homeowner continued to maintain detailed documentation, ensuring that any future actions were backed by evidence. The quiet authority they displayed had effectively neutralized the board's intimidation tactics. The homeowner had proven that calm preparation, thorough knowledge, and logical presentation could shift power in a way that anger or confrontation never could. Neighbors began to notice the change as well. Those who had faced similar threats quietly expressed relief and admiration. Some sought advice inspired by the homeowner's methodical approach. The homeowner offered guidance without creating conflict, teaching others the importance of documentation, preparation, and calm authority. The homeowner's actions created a subtle ripple effect, strengthening the sense of fairness and accountability in the community. The homeowner also reflected on personal growth during this time. The process had demanded patience, research, organization, and strategic thinking. Each step, from documenting letters to presenting evidence calmly, strengthened skills that extended beyond the immediate conflict. The homeowner realized that facing challenges with composure and preparation was more effective than reacting impulsively or emotionally. The experience had transformed fear into strategy and anxiety into confidence. Even though the HOA had not fully admitted fault, the homeowner could sense a permanent shift. The aggressive tactics that had characterized the early weeks had been replaced with caution and professionalism. Board members treated interactions more carefully, aware that the homeowner was knowledgeable, organized, and prepared. This subtle change confirmed that patience, documentation, and calm authority were powerful tools in overcoming intimidation. The homeowner continued daily routines with a new sense of quiet control. Yard maintenance, interactions with neighbors, and regular correspondence proceeded as usual. But the homeowner was now aware of their own strength and ability to manage the HOA effectively. Every interaction reinforced the importance of preparation, evidence, and composure. The homeowner had learned to transform a stressful and intimidating situation into one of control and influence. Over the next weeks, the homeowner maintained vigilance while remaining calm. They continued to document interactions, attend occasional meetings when necessary, and respond to inquiries with clear, factual information. The fear that had once dominated daily life was replaced with a steady confidence grounded in knowledge and preparation. The homeowner had turned a situation that seemed overwhelming into an opportunity to assert control, establish respect, and promote fairness within the community. This period became a quiet victory for the homeowner. They had proven that even in the face of repeated threats and intimidation, reason, preparation, and calm authority could prevail. Their actions had set a precedent for future interactions, not only protecting themselves but also demonstrating to neighbors and board members that knowledge, patience, and composure were stronger than fear. The homeowner had established a new balance of power, one that ensured fairness, respect, and dignity would guide future dealings with the HOA. By the end of this phase, the homeowner had transformed from a cautious, anxious resident into a figure of quiet authority and resilience. The HOA had learned that intimidation would no longer work, and that fairness and evidence were now the standard. The homeowner had not only defended their own property and peace of mind, but also strengthened the sense of accountability within the community. Through patience, preparation, and calm authority, the homeowner had turned a once threatening situation into a lasting victory that would influence the neighborhood for years to come. The homeowner had reached a point where their careful preparation, documentation, and calm authority had created a lasting impact. The aggressive letters and constant visits that had once caused anxiety were now rare. The HOA seemed to act with more caution and professionalism, understanding that the homeowner was fully aware of their rights and responsibilities. This final phase of the story was about consolidation, reflection, and the quiet satisfaction of having restored balance and control. The homeowner continued to maintain meticulous records, knowing that vigilance was still important. Every letter, email, and visit was documented, photographed, and stored. This ongoing attention reinforced a sense of security, ensuring that the board could not claim misunderstandings or inconsistencies in the future. The homeowner had learned that preparation was not a one-time effort but an ongoing practice that maintained authority and protected peace of mind. Neighbors noticed the homeowner's calm demeanor and careful approach. Some quietly admitted that they had faced similar issues but had been too intimidated to respond effectively. The homeowner shared advice explaining the importance of keeping records, understanding bylaws, and approaching conflicts calmly and logically. Without being confrontational, the homeowner had become a subtle example for the community. Residents began to feel more confident, knowing that fairness and patience could hold the board accountable. Daily life returned to a sense of normalcy. The homeowner tended to the yard, maintained the house, and interacted with neighbors, but now with a renewed confidence. Every interaction with the HOA, whether a simple inquiry or an inspection, was approached methodically. The homeowner responded with evidence and calm authority, ensuring that future misunderstandings were resolved quickly and fairly. What had once been a stressful environment was now manageable, even predictable, as the homeowner had effectively neutralized the fear that had once dominated. The HOA continued to communicate, but their tone had shifted. Letters that had previously been aggressive were now professional and measured. Visits were more respectful and focused on legitimate concerns rather than intimidation. The homeowner maintained the same careful approach, responding with documentation and calm explanations. This ongoing consistency reinforced the homeowner's authority and set a new standard for interactions. The board had learned that threats and fear would no longer dictate outcomes. The homeowner also reflected on personal growth during this experience. The situation had demanded patience, attention to detail, strategic thinking, and calm communication. Each step had strengthened skills that extended beyond the immediate conflict, providing tools for handling future challenges in both personal and professional life. The homeowner had discovered that knowledge and preparation were more powerful than emotion or confrontation. The sense of confidence and control that had developed was now a lasting part of daily life. One afternoon, the homeowner attended another board meeting, this time without tension or fear. The purpose was routine, discussing community matters and minor updates. The homeowner approached the meeting with the same calm, methodical presence. The board members treated them with respect, asking questions and acknowledging points without attempting intimidation. The shift was clear. The homeowner was now seen as an informed, prepared, and respected member of the community, not a target for aggressive tactics. Throughout this period, the homeowner maintained a balance between vigilance and everyday life. They continued documenting interactions and reviewing bylaws, but also made time for relaxation, hobbies, and social connections. The experience had taught that preparation and calm authority were effective only when paired with personal well-being and mental clarity. The homeowner had learned to navigate conflict without letting it consume life or happiness. The homeowner's quiet authority had effects beyond their own property. Neighbors who had faced similar challenges began to approach situations differently, inspired by the homeowner's example. Some became more organized in documenting issues, some learned to respond calmly rather than react emotionally, and others sought advice on approaching the HOA strategically. Without seeking recognition, the homeowner had influenced the community positively, creating an environment where fairness and preparation were valued. One of the most significant moments came when the HOA, having observed the homeowner's consistent approach, sought guidance on procedural clarity. Board members admitted that previous letters and inspections had occasionally lacked precision or clarity and asked for suggestions on how to maintain consistent and fair practices. The homeowner responded with practical advice, emphasizing documentation, clear communication, and consistency. The tone was collaborative rather than confrontational. This interaction demonstrated the homeowner's transformation from a cautious resident to a respected authority, shaping positive change in the community. In addition to managing the HOA, the homeowner reflected on the personal lessons learned. Patience had become a tool, preparation a shield, and calm communication a weapon stronger than anger or fear. They had learned to approach challenges methodically, to anticipate obstacles, and to respond with evidence rather than emotion. These skills not only helped with the HOA but also strengthened problem-solving and resilience in other areas of life. Over time, the homeowner's influence grew subtly within the neighborhood. Other residents recognized that intimidation from the HOA was no longer effective. People began to document concerns, ask questions politely but firmly, and approach conflicts with preparation and calmness. The homeowner had established a standard, not through confrontation or force, but through example. Knowledge, preparation, and composure became the new tools for fairness in the community. The homeowner also began to notice the impact on relationships. Interactions with neighbors became more collaborative, respectful, and supportive. The shared understanding that rules should be fair and applied consistently strengthened community bonds. The homeowner's calm and authoritative approach had inspired confidence, showing that individual diligence and preparation could influence broader systems. Residents felt empowered, and the environment became more balanced and predictable. The homeowner continued to live their life with quiet satisfaction. Daily routines, social interactions, and yard maintenance continued as usual, but there was a deeper sense of control and accomplishment. The HOA no longer instilled fear. It had become a manageable part of life, navigated with skill and authority. The homeowner's approach of documentation, patience, and calm assertiveness had proven successful, transforming a once threatening situation into a stable and respectful environment. As the months passed, the homeowner reflected on the entire journey. What had begun as fear, anxiety, and intimidation had evolved into a demonstration of personal strength, preparation, and strategic thinking. The homeowner had learned to navigate conflict without aggression, to assert authority without confrontation, and to influence both the board and neighbors through calm, factual, and respectful action. The experience had been challenging, but it had resulted in lasting lessons and a sense of personal empowerment. In the end, the homeowner had achieved a quiet victory. They had restored peace to their life, established authority and respect with the HOA, and influenced the community positively. The aggressive letters, threats, and intimidation were no longer a part of daily life. Instead, the homeowner had set a precedent. Fairness, preparation, and calm authority could prevail over fear and aggression. This final phase of the story highlighted the transformation from a cautious, anxious resident into a confident, knowledgeable, and respected member of the community. The homeowner's journey was a testament to the power of preparation, documentation, and composure. By facing challenges methodically and calmly, they had not only protected themselves, but also strengthened the sense of fairness and accountability within the neighborhood. Residents now understood that knowledge, patience, and calm action could overcome threats, and the homeowner had become a quiet example of resilience and authority. The story concluded with a sense of satisfaction, accomplishment, and lasting influence, demonstrating that even in the face of intimidation, one could achieve balance, respect, and personal growth through careful, thoughtful action. After months of dealing with the HOA, the homeowner had learned to navigate the complex system with confidence and skill. Life had returned to a quieter rhythm, yet the homeowner remained vigilant. They understood that authority needed to be maintained, not just established. With this mindset, the homeowner continued documenting every interaction, preparing for any new challenges that might arise. The daily routine of organizing letters, photos, and notes became a form of quiet empowerment, ensuring control over the situation remained in their hands. One morning, a new letter arrived from the HOA. It was less aggressive than previous communications but contained several questions about property standards and maintenance guidelines. The homeowner carefully reviewed each point, cross-referencing the bylaws and previous correspondence. They prepared detailed, well-organized responses, making sure that every question was answered accurately. The homeowner also took photos to support their claims, demonstrating compliance and attention to detail. This methodical approach had become second nature, a way to maintain authority while remaining calm and composed. The homeowner noticed that the board had begun to act more cautiously. Letters were polite and professional, inspections were scheduled rather than spontaneous, and questions were posed respectfully rather than as threats. This shift reinforced the homeowner's confidence, showing that consistent preparation and calm authority had a lasting effect. It also served as a reminder that maintaining control required ongoing diligence, not just past victories. As weeks went by, the homeowner reflected on how much they had grown. The experience had taught patience, strategic thinking, and the importance of documentation. It had also strengthened communication skills, allowing the homeowner to address conflicts without anger or defensiveness. Each interaction with the HOA became an opportunity to practice these skills, reinforcing both personal growth and authority. The homeowner also began to notice the impact on neighbors. Residents who had once been intimidated by the board were now more confident, inspired by the homeowner's calm and methodical approach. Some sought advice on how to respond to letters or inspections, and others began documenting their own interactions. The homeowner offered guidance without imposing, showing that preparation and knowledge could empower individuals while fostering a sense of fairness and respect within the community. One afternoon, the homeowner received a notice about a planned community meeting. This meeting was different from previous encounters. It was intended to address long-term community projects and general concerns. The homeowner attended with the same preparedness and calm authority they had developed over the past months. Documents were organized, evidence was ready if needed, and the homeowner had mentally prepared for any questions. Unlike past meetings, there was no tension or fear, only focus and clarity.